Hi everyone, this is Merrill Charette from Nautic Ed, and today we're going to be giving you an overview of Boston. We're going to cover some of the landmarks you'll see as you enter, what channels to enter through. We're going to have a discussion on where you can dock, where you can anchor, and what the mooring scene is like. We're also going to briefly go over the harbor islands, and at the end, I'll give you some attractions to check out if you come to Boston. So first off, what we're looking at is from Ditch Navigation. And what they do is they track AIS data. So it gives you kind of a semblance of what routes people take in order to get to Boston. If you're going through the south, if you're going south to north, there's a high likelihood that you're going to cut through the Cape Cod Canal, which is right here. Now, this is a very tide dependent area. If you show up at the wrong tide, the current can be extremely strong. You just won't make it across. So you have to time up going through the Cape Cod Canal. You can do some research on it. There's a group called the Eldridge Tide Charts that produce all the information for this area. If you're coming from Maine or New Hampshire or just farther north, you can just flip right in here pretty easily. So let's check out Boston. So there are two lighthouses in the outer harbor, right? You have Graves Light and you have Boston Light. If you're coming from the south, north, one of the first things that you're going to see is Boston Light. And that kind of gives you a sense of where the channel is, the southernmost channel. If you're coming from the north-south, you're probably going to see Graves Light first, and that gives you kind of an idea of these other channels up here. There are three main channels to enter Boston Harbor. There's this channel right here. There's this channel. And then there's this channel from the south. And then you cut through what's called the Narrows. It's narrow for a reason. It's quite narrow. So the three main, here, here, and here. Now, if you're coming through these channels, be aware that these greens here are the boundary of how far you want to go. You don't want to go anywhere over here. There's rocks, it's quite shallow. So just stay within the channel. So as you come in, you come in here, you come in here, or you come through here, one of the landmarks that you're going to notice is right over here. There's two giant wind turbines. And then there's these eggs. They are part of the water treatment plant for Boston. This is Deer Island. So they look like eggs from a milk carton. They're quite noticeable. You can see them from quite a distance away. So that just marks for Deer Island for you. Now, as we get into the inner harbor, there's some things to be aware of. So there's two channels to get to the inner harbor. There's the main channel right here, and then there's this kind of shortcut channel that goes through here. Now, be aware that when you're coming through here, or you're coming out, or you're going through here, it looks like there's open water between, but it's actually quite shallow, and many boaters have crashed onto what's called lower metal. So be aware of that. If you're in this area, just stay in the channel, you know. Now, we'll take you to Boston Harbor itself. So I'm going to shut off the AIS data. Okay, so for perspective, this is the main city. This is where all the skyscrapers are. The TD Gardens here, where the Bruins play, the Celtics play. North End, it's a big Italian area. And then you have the aquarium over here. So there are a few marinas, right? So the first marina you're going to run into is in Seaport. Seaport's a very young, new area of Boston. The name of this marina is called Fan Pier. It's a very high-end marina. Comes with a very high-end price tag. Now you have over here, you have Boston Yacht Haven. It's another very nice marina that'll bring you to as close to the city as you really can get. Over on this side in Charlestown, you have Charlestown Marina. They had won Marina of the Year last year. That's a very nice high-end marina, and there's a ferry that's right over here. That's an easy walk, about 3 minute walk that'll take you right to downtown. On this side, right over here near this bridge, you have Constitution Marina. It is a favorite of liveaboards. It's an older marina, but it's still nice. On this side of the harbor, you have Boston Shipyard. So Boston Shipyard is one of the only places you're going to find in the area that can haul out your boat and do work on it. That being said, if you try to find a dock slip here, to get to the city itself is a bit of a hassle. You'd have to call an Uber, and the Uber is going to have to take you all the way around over this bridge. And so, depending on how bad the traffic is, it could take some time, upwards of 30 minutes to get over there. Now, in this area right here, a little bit before the shipyard, and in between the Hyatt Regency, which is a massive building, it looks like a giant lighthouse. It definitely is a marker here. You can anchor in this area. It's a very industrial area, so just be aware of that. But people do anchor in this area. Now, where does the no wake zone begin? So, right here, you have this green and it cuts across to the Hyatt Regency, what looks like a giant lighthouse. So, this is the boundary of the no wake zone. Boston has a lot of police in this area that kind of comb up and down. And so, if you come flying through, they're going to catch you. They're just waiting for it. And you can usually tell who isn't local uh, just if they're blasting through the inner harbor here. So as soon as you get to this green, know that past that is a no wake zone. Over here is the airport. So you're going to see along the side a bunch of white cans. These you can't go by. They're just too close to the airport, so be aware of that. And a pro tip here is that planes, they land in the direction that the wind is coming from. So if the wind is coming down this way, the planes will fly across the channel over you and land. Now, if you happen to have that wind, you can get the boat right over here and wait for the planes to fly over. It's likely one of the closest times you'll ever be near a plane as it's in the air. So it's definitely worth checking out if the wind is on that favorable side. Now, as we go over to these harbor islands, all of these harbor islands are managed by the DCR. And for the most part, each one of these islands has mooring balls. How would you would go about booking these mooring balls through an app called Docwa. DCR and Docwa are working together. So that is how you would access these mooring balls. Now, sure, you could come in and grab a mooring ball and try to evade the DCR, but they do comb through each one of these islands. And so they'll go up and make sure that your boat is registered, and they do catch people and they'll kick you right off the mooring ball. So the first island that we're going to look at here is Spectacle Island. This island was actually a man-made island for the most part. They had taken the dirt from the Big Dig, the tunnels that connect to the airport, and just dumped it right here. There's a mooring field that's here, and then there's some dock spaces that are here. But the docks are quite small. They're going to be for small little runabout boats. The mooring balls, be warned. If you're going to stay overnight, it's going to be a bumpy night. There's a lot of ferries that pass through this area right here, and so they create a ton of wake. Over here, you have Long Island, not Long Island, New York, but Long Island, Boston. And there's an area right over here. There's an old building. What you'll see there, it looks like an old hospital. They actually had filmed part of Shutter Island here. In this area is another favorite of a lot of people. It's called Peddix Island. There's a bunch of mooring balls in this area, and some people anchor over here as well. Now, my favorite island is George's Island. So George's Island has Fort Warren on it, old pre-Civil War fort. It's got a lot of history. It's quite a experience to get on the island, and you can either dinghy over if you grab a mooring ball over here, but it's definitely a sight to see. The structure is much bigger than you would imagine. Over here we have Gallup's Island, where there's a mystery. Apparently there's some buried treasure there that no one's been able to find. You're not allowed to access the island, but there are a line of mooring balls that are also over here. Now, some extra things to be warned about, where people run into issues. So there are three main areas where people run into issues. Over here, they're coming through this channel or this channel, and they think they can just cut across. Uh, doesn't work like that. Don't do it. Over here, lower middle, as I talked about earlier, is another area that people get messed up on. And then in this large anchorage, you have these yellow cans and nuns. So at night, they have no markers on them. And people have tried to cut through to get to this channel, and they've run into these markers. So be aware of if you're coming through this area to keep your head up and know where you are so you don't crash into these. Now, as far as attractions and things to do in Boston, so right over here is the Constitution or USS Constitution. And that starts what's called the Freedom Trail, which is about a 3 mile trail through Boston, which will give you all the sights. So it starts here, it goes up to the monument, Bunker Hill Monument right here. It'll come down through the city, all through the north end and around. It's about a 3 mile loop, but it'll take you to all the cool spots. If you happen to end up at Charlestown Marina, over here is a nice area. It's called Pier 6. It's a restaurant on the water. From my opinion, it's got the best view of Boston. So if you end up in this area, definitely check out Pier 6. It's a very nice high-end restaurant, beautiful views. And that is our overview of Boston. So again, if you guys are interested in any educational resources regarding boating, whether it's sailing or powerboat, check out Nautic Ed's courses. I'll be linking those into the notes of this episode.